So, Jazz first preseason game just ended about 15 minutes ago for us. Watched the Walker Kessler interview, looked at some stats, and that's about it. Initial reactions. What are your thoughts?
I mean, we got to start where our big question was, right? Starting lineup. That was one that we really wanted to know what was going to happen there. Started with Taylor Horton-Tucker and Colin Sexton at the two guard spots.
Yeah. And,
Whew.
I mean, Tucker comes in and hits 2 quick threes, and
everybody's like, hold on, hold the phone.
And then looked like Taylor Horton-Tucker.
And then, so he played abnormally good shooting-wise for the first 5 minutes, but his defense, where he was supposed to be a strength of his, he was lunging at people as kind of they came off some screens, really getting himself out of position, drew a couple of weird fouls, got off balance a couple of times. Looks like he was going to headbutt the stanchion,
falls out of bounds.
That was kind of odd. And Colin Sexton, it looked like he had the jitters. I mean, Colin Sexton ended up 1 of 6 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3.
Yeah, he
played 18 minutes.
He clearly ran the point guard out of the two and was not good.
Had 4 turnovers. Looked a little bit jittery. We know that Colin usually plays a little bit better in that role. And hopefully this is something where, in my opinion, we'll call it that, where we are trying a few different lineups during the preseason, because that one was interesting. I really liked Kessler, Collins, and Markkanen as far as some of the signs of how they're moving and trying to get things going.
Yeah.
I blame a lot of the lack of flow that we had offensively, especially the first 2.5 quarters, 3 quarters on the guards that were out there.
No, 100%. 100%. The ball would hit Tucker's hand, Sexton's hand, Clarkson's hand, and would just stop. It just sits, and quickly, Tucker's looking for a shot a couple times. And then after he's hit a couple threes, we start to try to run some sets. He goes super early because he's just got his head down, dribbling to the rim, almost runs into Agbaji as he's coming up to set a screen.
The spacing was really bad as we were kind of looking to move the ball around. And the result of that is the majority of our offense was off of isolation.
Yeah.
And that's why, Markkanen ends up 4 of 10 from the field, right? 0 of 3 from 3, which we know is not normal. That's going to
fix it. And that is the thing about Markkanen. Markkanen's not a huge ISO player, especially on the wing. Once he gets more in like the post and a little bit more low, he's good. But him just trying to take a guy one-on-one off the dribble is not his strength. It's not going to be successful for him as a player.
Right. There were some odd stats out there. Sorry, I got to put the readers on here. Like Kelly Olynyk had 0 total shots in his 20 minutes that he played. That was odd.
And you guys, I don't know. You guys let us know in the comments. I want to know your thoughts. I felt like Olynyk played bad. I was shocked to hear he had 7 rebounds. I felt like he looked hesitant and just almost like he did not know where he was supposed to be on the court.
It was odd. And some of those things you can expect, right, on a first preseason game.
For sure.
You can expect
you got some rust.
So that's not the end of it, but there were some real positives out there. Chris Dunn, my goodness. Let us repeat our love for Chris Dunn.
Holy crap. Kawhi and Paul George aren't playing, but for the most part, everyone else is.
Right.
And offensively, he ran the offense. All of a sudden, him, Keontae George, and Agbaji, the ball just started to sling around.
Right.
And we were getting easy layups.
Some of the simple fixes was Chris Dunn gets a rebound, immediately, gets the ball up the court, and all of a sudden we're in some open court transition where this team is supposed to be able to have some advantages, right? I liked what Luka Samanic did when he came in at the end, a couple of odd drives, but I think he's somebody that can get some minutes. Taylor Hendricks, we finally got to see him.
And he looked like a 19-year-old kid.
He looked like a rook.
He did. He comes in, hits a big shot, and a 3 that, as he was pulling up, I was just kind of like, and money.
Yeah.
And looked springy.
Looked athletic. There were a couple of times in a transition moment, it looked like he was going to set up to try and get for a block, and they kind of pulled a little bit of a feint, a little bit of a hezzy, and shook him off there. So he's going to have some fun moments to see this year. But man, really looking forward to seeing his development. He's a little bit behind right now, but finally got to see him play.
Yeah, stoked. Being able to see him, depending on what we do with our lineups too, a little bit maybe in the G League and stuff like that isn't going to be bad. That's going to be good to see. But once again, like we said earlier in the first podcast, right? We have to trade some of these guards because we're trying to slide Agbaji in at backup 3 and backup 2. And so because of that, Taylor Hendricks doesn't get any minutes in the first half. When we're running our starters, our main lineup, Taylor Hendricks doesn't touch the court because we're trying to run Agbaji at 3, which I'm okay with in spot minutes like when we had Dunn, George, and Agbaji.
Right.
He should be starting at the 2.
And I think that'll even, it'll happen. It looked like a bunch of his naive moments that we saw last year on defense are gone.
Man.
He looked like he was aggressively going around screens, powering through, kind of gained the physical edge in this offseason. I mean, he was already a specimen coming in as a rookie, but it looks like the work that he's done is nice.
A lot of times last season, he would weirdly lower his hands and kind of shy away from the contact and try to just not get hit. In this game, it was planted and the aggressor and just delivering a blow. Much better defensively. He was already good defensively.
Yeah.
And so
I loved his battles with Norman Powell out there. And I'm a big Norman Powell fan. I don't know if you guys know that, but Norman Powell was the leading bench scorer in the NBA last year. I think 17-something a game. And his battles with him are nice. I think it's just eventually got to happen. Ochai is gonna gain the starting spot at the 2, play a little bit of minutes back up at the 3.
Yeah.
And Keontae George had some moments where he moved the ball nicely and got us into sets. To be honest, the only real point guards doing point guard things happened with Chris Dunn and a little bit with Keontae George.
Yeah. You can tell
the others
Keontae George. You can tell Keontae George at times was looking pass first. He's not just looking for his own shot, but he's obviously more combo guard, like you said, trying to score, where Chris Dunn is straight. He is going to set everyone up. But Keontae George definitely looked more natural in that position. Like you said, yeah. Sexton looked really bad trying to run the offense.
And I expect him to play better than that in the upcoming games. I would.
It's first preseason, right?
Yeah. So there are things that we want to see there. I about jumped out of my seat when Keontae George tried to dunk that one.
And I want to see a replay on that.
That's true.
I feel like he just slipped or something because it looked like he had it. That was I love the aggressiveness.
He tried one of those in Summer League too. I think it kind of got blocked away. It was I'm trying to remember the game it was against, but loved that. I thought Omer Yurtseven came in and played solid, rebounded really well, which I thought, maybe I'm wrong, I thought was one of his weaknesses coming in. I thought he rebounded well. He looked like he was really nice at setting the screens. He got there quick, planted himself, looked like to be a good screener. Omer Yurtseven is interesting, and he's got kind of a type of game that's a dribble handoff game, doing the DHO stuff.
He gives us an interesting look as we start moving pieces and stuff, that I was concerned about the backup 5 position, which is why I even talked a little bit about Taylor Hendricks, maybe backup 5 if we move Olynyk. And he kind of put a lot of that to rest here. That looked like a serviceable backup 5.
Right. If you were to take signs from the first preseason game of the year, they were there.
Walker Kessler, speaking of 5s.
He did Walker Kessler things.
Zubac, I feel like rebounding-wise and even offensively-wise, last season, Kessler really struggled against his physicality and his size. And, man, he attacked Kessler, first possession. I don't think he tried ever again.
Yeah. Ends up with 7 points, 7 rebounds, 5 blocks. That does have the 1 assist. Kessler's got to get his free throw game in line if we're going to make any sort of a playoff run with him in there. He needs to be able to shoot free throws
for sure.
Jordan Clarkson played 14 minutes. It was interesting to see he did come off the bench. We'll have to see what happens on Tuesday.
I feel like Tuesday we have 2 brand new guards. I feel like Tuesday you could see Chris Dunn and Agbaji starting. You could see Keontae George and Agbaji starting. Like, I struggle in not starting Agbaji on Tuesday with how well he came in. We clearly started Tucker for a defensive player on Paul George. We moved. Markkanen was guarding Terrence Mann, I believe.
Yep.
And man, Tucker struggled, whereas Agbaji comes in and, like you said, with Norman Powell, I feel like we see a complete. I think the preseason, as long as they're playing, Kessler, Collins, and Markkanen will start, and we may see two different guards starting every single night in the preseason, like straight up,
just keeping you on your toes.
Yeah.
Ochai's shooting was a little bit off. He was 4 of 6. From inside the three. His three was off tonight, including he banked one. It was pretty rough.
Yeah.
He was 0-4 from 3. We know that his overall averages from there should be fine.
Yeah.
Unless he's just spent all offseason in the gym.
Yeah. Showed a much better ability to finish at the rim, which he really did bad at last year. Anytime he drove, he looked awkward.
That's true.
And he really struggled at the rim.
That was a part of his scouting report coming out of college, was that he really struggled driving, especially going to his left. In finishing that way, and that's something that he's obviously improved since he got into the league. So
I'm curious to see as it goes, because last year, man, he would do like awkward timed jumps trying to get to the rim.
Sometimes jumping off the wrong leg.
Yeah, he drove way better this game, looked way more comfortable this game attacking than he ever did last year. And once again, it's a one-game thing, but the early reactions show that he has worked on being more comfortable in that.
In those moments that Will Hardy gave him last year and in Summer League of showing what you can do when you're pushed into your uncomfortable zone that's part of what it pays off.
Yeah.
I would like to see him a lot of times going into the paint, basically to plant and rise up with a nice mid-range jumper. He really creates space when he does that. Something kind of the Donovan Mitchell used to do. I'd like to see him add that a little bit more, but I think we all know that the three-point shooting will come around. But overall, I mean, I've been stoked waiting for this game to happen. Obviously, some pluses and minuses and rusty spots of the preseason, but we'll see as it goes along. Next game on Tuesday night.
Yeah. Overall, I thought it was a good game. Overall, I mean, the one guy we didn't really talk about was Fontecchio. I thought he looked horrible, which concerns me. He obviously played great. He looked horrible, but kind of things we expected. John Collins looked new, but looked like he's a guy that's going to fit in once, especially when the offense flows. The guys, Markkanen, Kessler, Agbaji, those guys looked good. Clarkson gets what you get. I think it was kind of expected player-wise, not expected minutes-wise.
It was a little bit disappointing, the lack of flow from our starters, from our top players. That was kind of a little bit disappointing. I remember watching the game, our first preseason game last year that was up in Canada against Toronto, and thinking like, man, this is going to be rough. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So,
preseason.
It's kind of, you pick out the signs and see what's going on, but gives you a little bit more of a glimpse, and I can't wait for Tuesday night.
Yeah. Tell us what you guys think in the comments about first reactions for preseason game 1, and we'll see you guys Tuesday.